The government will start its strategic shift to more granular lockdowns by mid-September. The health department says even temporary quarantine facilities are now at risk due to the increasing number of COVID patients. Finance Secretary Sonny Dominguez says the country has now secured enough vaccine doses to inoculate every Filipino by January next year. Over 100 individuals were killed in an airport attack in Kabul, but the U.S. military says the worst is yet to come. And it's Hot Girl Coach and BTS collaborating for a remix that found success not just among fans, but in a Texas court as well. Focused and fearless. Here's everything you need to know to start your weekend. I'm Riza Diaz. The Interior Department is looking to reimpose granular lockdowns by mid-September instead of citywide or province-wide lockdowns, but will still depend on the country's vaccination and number of cases in the coming weeks. Global journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to the story.
Authorities have been planning a strategic shift from regional to granular lockdowns by mid-September. This means selected barangays, subdivisions, streets, and even specific buildings where COVID-19 is found to be raging will be sealed off and treated.
We will now do away with the ECQ and just impose granular lockdowns.
But that does not mean that quarantine restrictions will be lifted from the rest of the country. Malaya says the only thing the IATF is removing is the category of enhanced community quarantine. This means other regions and provinces could still be placed by the IATF under any of the quarantine levels.
But as to the MECQ, GCQ, and MGCQ, that has yet to be decided by the IATF.
As for the date of implementation, Malaya says they are looking at the first half of September. A lot would depend on the rate of vaccinations and the number of new COVID-19 cases in the next few weeks.
We are now confident that a lot of people can go out and do about their jobs so long as they practice the minimum health standards.
As of August 25, more than 30 million Filipinos have received the vaccines. But just this week, COVID-19 cases spiked by 20%, and the health department says expect new peaks of COVID cases in the following weeks. Malaya says should the situation get out of hand, the shift can be pushed to a later date.
If the MECQ does not work, and it continues to increase, maybe we will defer implementation.
Local governments have expressed concern about the granular lockdown, saying some LGUs may not be able to shoulder providing financial assistance. But Malaya says the cost of the granular lockdown will be split between the LGU and the national government 50-50. I'm Jacob Lazaro and we are One News.
Here are other developments we're following on the country's pandemic response. The health department logged over 17,400 new cases yesterday, making it the second highest daily tally recorded since the pandemic began. The highest recorded daily COVID cases was logged last August 23 at over 18,300. The country's total caseload is now at 1.9 million with about 142,000 active cases. 113 new fatalities were recorded yesterday, bringing the death toll closer to 33,000. Meanwhile, over 6,700 patients have beaten the virus for a total of around 1.7 million recoveries. The country also recorded its highest positivity rate at 26.1% out of the 70,000 tests conducted yesterday. The health department says Even temporary quarantine facilities are now at moderate risk. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere reported that temporary treatment and monitoring facilities are steadily filling up. Data showed that 63% of the 12 facilities reporting to DOH is currently occupied. These quarantine facilities are being used to decongest hospitals of mild and asymptomatic cases. The Philippines has secured enough vaccines to cover all Filipinos. That's according to Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III. Dominguez said that the country is expecting to receive about 50 million doses a month from September to December. At this rate, he said the country will be able to inoculate all Filipinos by January. Dominguez also said that the Philippines has enough money to pay for the jabs. That's with the government having spent over $1.3 billion for the shots so far. He added that 45 billion pesos has been set aside from the 2022 budget for the possible procurement of booster shots. Health workers are giving the department. Meanwhile, health workers are giving the Department of Health a deadline to release their benefits, some of which are dating back to 2020. Greg Gregorio with the report.
The Alliance of Health Workers has been staging protests due to unpaid COVID-19 benefits. They are giving the health department until August 31 or else at least 2,000 of their members nationwide will hold different forms of strike.
Dahil matagal na tayong nananawagan na go resign or go out sa Department of Health.
Aside from the special risk allowance, Mendoza called on the DOH to release their meal subsidy, as well as their active hazard duty pay, dating back from December 2020 to June this year.
Sana marami pa sana na-encourage ng mga health workers na manatili dito sa ating bansa kung naibigay man ito.
Dr. Maricar Limpin of Philippine College of Physicians says healthcare workers shouldn't be begging for benefits in the first place. Limpin hopes the situation won't have to end in more protests. The DOH has downloaded additional 311 million pesos for the SRA of around 20,000 healthcare workers. When asked about the looming strike, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere has this to say.
Ginagawa po namin lahat ng aming makakaya para matugunan po natin ang kahilingan ng ating mga healthcare workers. Sana ang isipin na lang po natin lahat ngayon yung mga pasyente po na nangangailangan lahat ng serbisyo nating lahat.
Vergere noted that they have already requested an additional fund for the SRA of 17,000 more health workers, and the list will further expand as health facilities continue to submit the details of beneficiaries. The DOH is also now coordinating with lawmakers to cover healthcare workers without direct exposure to COVID-19 patients. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Over in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, the government has started to receive their COVID-19 vaccines in a bid to reach 90% state vaccination rate by the end of the year. Let's watch this Bloomberg Quick Take.
Essa população é uma população importante, uma população que frequenta a escola também, né? Então é importante que eles também estejam protegidos para o coronavírus, evitando assim a transmissão.
Eu estava esperando muito por essa vacina. Desde o ano passado eu estava torcendo logo para poder minha vida logo voltar ao normal, que eu quero logo voltar para a escola, eu quero voltar a sair com meus amigos, eu quero sair, eu quero voltar à minha vida normal. A dose foi toda administrada.
At least 100 individuals, both Americans and Afghans, lost their lives to suicide bombings near the Kabul airport. Now, a few weeks after they officially left the country, the U.S. military is now bracing for more attacks. Aryan Kalumbiran with the details.
This ditch near Kabul airport has turned red. Its waters soaked with the blood of corpses, all fatalities from at least 2 powerful suicide bombings outside the gateway. The attack killed at least 103 people, including no less than a dozen American troops. Scores of wounded civilians were also rushed to hospitals. Islamic State Khorasan has claimed responsibility for the attack.
We believe it is their desire to continue those attacks, and we expect those attacks to continue. And we're doing everything we can to be prepared for those attacks.
A day before the bombings, the U.S. government and its allies have urged Afghans not to go to the airport due to threats of an attack. Over the past few weeks, thousands have been flocking the Kabul airport in the hopes of fleeing the Taliban, which regained control of the nation. An emotional U.S. President Joe Biden promised to hunt down the perpetrators. He says the Pentagon is planning to strike back.
For those who carried out this attack, as well as anyone who wishes America harm, know this: we will not forgive. We will not forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay.
While he takes responsibility for the events of the past weeks, Biden says the target deadline for the pullout of troops and Afghan allies on August 31 still stands.
We will not be deterred by terrorists. We will not let them stop our mission. We will continue the evacuation.
The Philippines Foreign Affairs Department, meanwhile, confirmed that there was no Filipino casualty in the airport attack. 185 overseas Filipinos have so far been taken out of Afghanistan. Arian Kalumbiran, we are One News.
Yesterday, Korean pop juggernaut BTS dropped an even sweeter rework of their hit Butter with rapper Thee Stallion. The 3-time Grammy winner fired up the group's smooth instrumentals with punchy verses. The drop came after a Texas court ruled in favor of Thee Stallion's request to extend the TRO that would permit her to appear in Butter. According to the documents filed by the American rapper, the label tried to block the release of the song on the grounds that it would not be beneficial for her career. But both ARMY and Thee Stallion fans backed them up by not only trending the highly anticipated remix, but also calling out the music industry for their rampant mistreatment of female artists and people of color. Butter remix has been greatly received, pulling over 15 million views since it dropped yesterday. And that is how the day is shaping up to be. Join us later again at 10 in the morning as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.